What is going on, guys? It is Confederate State Politics back with another video. I am formerly Red Tie Politics. I decided to change the name to make it more friendly. So, yeah, here we go. We are back after a very long time. I think it's around 120 days. I will give you guys an update on that shortly. But let's get on to the video today. So, what I have is a 25-26 election night prediction for all the races, including the 2025 New Jersey and Virginia gubernatorial elections, which are right here. I'll show them off. As you can see, it's only supposed to be 36, so I put it at 38, so I can include the two races there, so I don't make a separate video on that. I can just include them all. But first, we'll start out with the Senate election for 2026, and this one is a very interesting one. It's supposed to be closer than a lot of people think, but it really does depend on a lot of the foreign policy and stuff that happens during the Trump presidency, to really make sure this race is, on either side close. So, let's get into it. So, I will start out with the solid states, or the safe states that are above 13 points. That's how I do it. Above 13 points for either party. So for the Democrats, it would be 13, and the Republicans, it would be 13. Let's get into it. So for the solid seats, I do have Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Alaska, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and South Carolina. For the Republicans, which brings them up to 47 seats. It's much easier for the Republicans to win the Senate than the Democrats, and you'll see why later on. But let's get to the Democrat seats, which are Oregon, Colorado. I'll also include Minnesota, because if we run Royce White, I don't believe that we can do very well in that seat. We also have Illinois, Delaware, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and that is it, I do believe, for the Democrats. Which brings the Democrats to 42 seats. So you're seeing why it's very much easier for the Republicans to have much more opportunity to win as much seats rather than the Democrats. So we'll get into that in just 1 second. But let me get to the likely seats. So that's anything above 5 points for either side, like I said. Which are Texas, Florida, Ohio, I believe that's what I have. Yes, Ohio, and Iowa. There has been a lot of debate on Iowa, but just because I just believe that the state has been shifting a lot points to the right, not very, but a lot of points to the right. It's now Trump 13-point state, so I just don't believe that it can shift that much to the left in one cycle, even though how polarized it is. And the state overall has just become a very Republican state. I just don't see how Democrats can get close enough to bring it into the lean column. But yeah, I do have the state around 6 points, 7 points. It's still going to be a better year for the Democrats in that state, but I just don't see how the Democrats can do well. In Ohio, people have said Sherrod Brown might run. I just don't believe that's the case. And even if he does, he still lost to Bernie Moreno by a considerable margin when he was actually supposed to win, according to the polls. And even though Bernie Moreno was catching up, he was still a little bit ahead. So, of course, I just don't believe after he got voted out, people would want him back. Because Bernie Moreno has been doing a pretty good job, in my opinion. A lot of things that he proposed, he has done it. So, yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. Now for the Democrats, I do have New Mexico, I have New Jersey, Virginia, and that is it. So you see now, after that, of course, Republicans are at 51, so they are going to take the Senate, in my opinion. But let's see how much Republicans can add on, or if the Democrats can slim that majority as much as they can so they can block anything passing. So, yeah, of course, New Mexico, I do think that state is pretty close. It always is on this cycle of the Senate. I think it's around D+8, D+7, in my opinion. Now, Virginia, I do think it's going to be closer. It really does depend on the 2025 gubernatorial run and how Spears does against Spanberger, but you know it's going to be a very interesting race. Same thing with New Jersey. Of course, you've had New Jersey shifting more and more to the right as it comes. You saw it being around a 5-point race in 2024. And I do think it's going to be even closer in 2025 with Jack Citarelli and Mickey Sherrill. I think that's going to be a very, very close race, and I'll give my intel on that in this video as well. But yeah, I do think, Booker, of course, is going to run again. I think he's already stated that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little less just because the state is having a turning, I guess you can say. But yeah, I think that's what it's going to be at this point. So now let's get to the lean and tilt states. So these are states that are above 1 point or are very, very close or below a point. Tilt are below a point and lean are above a point. So let's get into it. So for the lean column, I do believe, Susan Collins will narrowly hold on. I think that's around a 1 point state. It's very narrowly lean. So you can say that this state is going to be closer because in 2020 she won by 8.6, but then you go back, she won by 37. So you can say the state has become significantly closer, but I just don't believe she'll go down that quickly. I think she probably has one more run to do before she either retires or gets completely knocked out. But I think that state is going to be closer than a lot of people expect. It'll be a very interesting state to say the least, but we'll go on there. Then we have the state of Michigan. This state is very interesting, as you guys know. The incumbent senator, Peters, is not going to run. Gary Peters is not going to run. He has stated that. So, of course, we do not know exactly who is going to run. We do know, and I can give you this information right now, on the Democrats, you've had a lot of people trying to go for this state. You have had around 4 people declare. While on the Republicans, you have had, Mike Rogers, which ran last time and got a very close race the last time. And the seat only lost by a couple tenths of a point. So, very, very close race. It was supposed to be not that close. Same thing said for Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. But yeah, I mean, Mike Rogers could do very well. I do think narrowly pulls it off. Call me crazy. But he's just did such a great job. He is now an overperformer, you can say. He did overperform, in 2024. So I don't see why he couldn't overperform in 2026 and, take that Democratic seat away and, keep their 53-47 majority or even, gain on it. But we'll see on the last 2 seats, which are Georgia and North Carolina. So you have Tom Tillis, he always has been very close in his runnings. Same thing can be said for Georgia, but Georgia Ossoff in a year pulled it off after the special election that occurred in the state. You have seen Georgia become more of a Democratic state than usual. Trump did win it by around 2 percentage points in 2024, so he did turn the tide there. But definitely depends who runs. I think Brian Kemp, if he would have ran, he would have won by quite a bit. But it is unfortunate that he is not going to run. Ossoff is kind of a good candidate, so I'm going to put that narrowly, tilting D. Of course, if we get a better candidate, I think it could be close. But at this moment, I just don't see Republicans doing that well in the state. So that will be a hold for the Democrats. Now, for the last state in North Carolina, this can be a very interesting state. I do believe, in the closer elections, North Carolina, especially according to last year when Mark Robinson lost by quite a bit. That was after his horrible campaign. But in the state of North Carolina, this is purely a toss-up. It can go either way. I know that Cooper's not going. He has said that he's not going to run or has no interest in running just yet. That could change. If Cooper does run, I do believe that state does turn blue. But for right now, I do have it narrowly going towards Republicans, very narrowly. I think it's probably one of the closest states, probably around the same margin as Michigan. But this is my model for the Senate. It will be 54 to 46. You have Republicans picking up one seat, which is the state of Michigan. Very, very close. I mean, as you can see, this thing can go either way. Like, you have this, this, and this. It can go 59-41. So, it can be a very, very close election there. It can go either way. It can be within the margin of error. But, of course, this is what I have it as right now. Now, let's move on to the gubernatorial side. This one will be interesting, to say the least. I mean, last time in 2022, it was very interesting, to say the least. But let's get into it. So let's start with the safe states, like I did. We'll go down the same column. Start out with the safe states for the Republicans, which are Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska. We'll have, we'll go for Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, Florida. We'll also have Alaska. And we also have 2 more states, Vermont and New Hampshire. I will give a little bit of information on Vermont in a second, because I do think people do believe that the incumbent Scott is going to not run again. That will be interesting. For right now, of course, I think he's going to run, but I'll keep it as safe Republican. He's been doing it. He's been always outrunning everybody. He's always been an overperformer, so of course that seat I do believe stays red. Same thing with New Hampshire. Of course, Iowa is interesting. I do believe Kim Reynolds does run, so I will put that narrowly safe. It definitely depends on a lot of things. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if Kim Reynolds is running. We will check that. Never mind. Okay. I just saw from my sources that I have here. I have a whole list on my other screen. Kim Reynolds is not running, so I'll actually hold off, and I'll, probably put that as likely Republican for now. We'll wait and see on that one. But yeah, I'll put that as likely Republican. Next, we have the Democratic seats. I will have as California, Colorado. We have here Illinois, Minnesota, we'll also have Maryland, and Massachusetts, and Maine. That's it for the Democrats. You see, they're keeping some of these here. You're probably thinking, oh, why is New York not safe? Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Same thing for Connecticut and Rhode Island. But yeah. Next, I have the likely states for the Republican Party, which is Kansas, Nevada, which is crazy, and Ohio. A lot of people have said, oh, Ohio can be close. That is true. I do think Vivek Ramaswamy can do well in the state that has been shifting a lot to the right. So, I just don't believe it will shift. It's the same thing on the Senate side in Iowa, right? So, I just don't believe it will shift that much. As well, we have Texas as well on that list. So, that's as well there. Now for the Democrats, we do have Pennsylvania. I know a lot of people said, oh, this can be close. Josh Shapiro, I just believe he's always been a very large overperformer. I mean, he won almost by 15 last time. I just don't see, how he drops down. He's a very popular governor, so I think he sustains, maybe loses a point on what he did last time. But overall, I do believe he does keep that margin. But basically, now we have the state of Connecticut. I do think it's the same story. I think it's around a 13-point margin. Then we have Virginia, the state of Virginia. I do think Spanberger gets around a 5 to 6 point margin on Sears. She's run a great campaign. And I do believe, in this sense that she will win. Of course, you do have a very liked Republican Party in the state. You know, yeah, I think that Spamberger, she will win. It just depends on how much. It depends on how Sears runs her campaign at this point. She is very, very far behind. But yeah, I think it's going to be possibly close. I'll update this every now and then to see where we are in that sense. But, yeah, that's around a 5 to 6 point race. Now, I do believe that is. Never mind, we have the state of Michigan. Yeah, so. Oh, sorry, I missed Rhode Island completely. Yeah. So, if you guys saw that poll, it showed that the Rhode Island governor was very, very unpopular. That's why I have that race stated as likely. We'll see how that runs, but it's the same thing as Michigan. Whitmer is popular, so I do think she does well again. But yeah, there you go. That's the likely states. Same thing. I keep missing states. New Mexico as well. Sorry about that. Yeah. So we do have this as well. So this is the map right now without the lean or likely states. Or not the lean or tilt states. Sorry about that. But yeah, so now we'll move on to the closest state. I will go down the list. You're probably wondering why I have Oregon not on there yet. I will explain that in a second. But yeah, so Oregon, it is close, I do believe, because of course, if you saw last time, Kotek ran a very close race. Of course, you had a third party dragging both of them down. It was around a 3 point race. I will narrowly put it likely. I will do that. I think it's around exactly a 5 point race. You've seen this happen before. I mean, it's been always a very close race. Last time it was around a 6 point race. Then it was 3. So, I do believe it'll be close. But it will be very close between lean and likely. Next, we do have the state of Wisconsin. Tony Evers, I think, runs around the same. Maybe a little less. I think around 2. That's what I believe. He's, I think, been always an overperformer from last time. He was expected to go down. So, I just think he holds on. I think we get the third round of Evers, but it's okay. Next, we have the state of New York. So, this one is very interesting. Kathy Hochul is a very unpopular incumbent. She is hated by a lot of her base, and people think she should be primaried. So, in this sense, we do have Mike Lawler. We don't know if he's going to run yet. We also have Elise Stefanik, which is in the House of Representatives at this moment. But at this moment, I do believe New York is a lean state at this moment. Crazy. But, New York, I do believe, is around a 4 point race for Kathy Hochul. I think it can be a very interesting race if, Republicans take that seat. It will be a very interesting night. But at this moment, I do believe, Hochul holds on narrowly. Next, we have the state of New Jersey. So, like I said before, Jack Ciattarelli was the candidate in 2021 against Phil Murphy. So, that race was very close. I was watching that race in 2021. It was a very close race. Ciattarelli was ahead for a good portion of the night. But then, of course, you had Democratic precincts that made him ahead. So, just from what I've seen, and of course, you had the most popular labor personnel endorse Jack Ciattarelli, which last time endorsed a Democrat. So, and everything that I've seen, everybody I've talked to says that it's going to be an extremely close race. I do think narrowly Ciattarelli pulls it off. Very, very close race. It can actually go either way. But Ciattarelli is very, very popular. He's liked by all moderates. He did well last time, very good with moderates. So I just don't see why not he would pull it off. Next, we have the last 2 states, probably the closest states of them all, Arizona and Georgia. I will start with Arizona. So, Katie Hobbs in 2022 won very narrowly against Carrie Lake, around a sixth of a point. So she did do very well in that state. Of course, that state was trending left. Now, Trump winning it by 5 points in 2024 does offset that. It does depend who runs and who, wins the Republican primary in that state. But for now, just because Trump won it by 5 points, I'm going to put it narrowly tilting Republican. Just because I don't believe it can shift that much within 1 to 2 years. I think it'll take some time. Hobbs, I know, is very popular in the state. But at this moment, I just have it very narrowly tilting Republican. Next, we have the last state, which is the state of Georgia. Brian Kemp, of course, is term limited, so he cannot run again. There is no really good Democratic candidate on the side, neither is there for the Republicans. So just in that sense, I will have that state leaning Republican at this point, because of course you're coming off the legacy of a very popular incumbent governor. So I do believe, that state will be close. I think it's around a 1.2% margin for the Republicans at this point. But yeah, so in my map, I have it 21 for Republicans, 17 for Democrats. We have I think it's only 2 pickups. It's very close. Like I said, it can change. Democrats can get the majority for the gubernatorial side. But, of course, you're seeing probably a trend. It's going to definitely depend on a lot of things and legacies and all that. But let's move on to the House of Representatives. This is the side I kind of dread, so bear with me through this. Right now, as a base, I have 77 toss-ups just off of last year's races, off of the both Republicans and Democratic side. So I will go one by one per state to see which one will take the majority. And this will actually depend on a lot of things. See if Trump will get the rest of his things passed, or will he have trouble. So let's get started. I will start out in the Northeast. So we'll start out with the state of Maine. So with the state of Maine, you have Jared Golden. He won by the skin of his teeth, half a point. So, and there was a poll that came out with him down by 3. They also think he's going to run as governor. That's going to be interesting. For now, because the state had that, district has been trending right. It went from being golden plus 6 in 2022 to being golden plus half a point. So I do think narrowly I will having as a Republican seat. So that's 1 pickup already for the Republicans. Then we have the state of New Hampshire. This state has not moved a lot. I mean, for the last cycle since 2016, it has been likely for both. So I can see, how these both districts are going to stay the same. Pappas and Goodlander, they have always been doing very well. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I believe. It'll stay probably the same. So, no surprises there. In the state of Connecticut, this district will stay likely. Because, of course, you have more of a conservative side to that seat. If you look at, the precincts, this area is a little more Republican than this side. So, of course, yeah. So, it's going to be very interesting how that is the case. But, next we have, I'll actually skip over New York for a little bit. I'll actually skip over these 3 states. I'll move on to Maryland, because these are a little more interesting. I do want to go over this a little more. But yeah, so the state of Maryland, we do have the 6th congressional district. This one was actually quite close. I will have it around the same, around a 6-point margin for McLean Delaney. Yeah. This race was very interesting. I know a lot of people were hoping that, the Republican would pull it off. I just don't think so. In the state of Delaware, we have a very popular incumbent, so I'll just keep that as. So, next we have the state of Virginia. So this one is very interesting. So, we do have Kiggins. We'll start on the 2nd congressional district. Kiggins has always done very well. In 2022, she pulled that off by 3.4. In 2024, she only went up by 0.4. Now, in a Democratic year that's supposed to be decent for Democrats, I do believe she narrowly pulls it off. I'll put it as tilting Republican. It can go either way. But at this point, because she is pretty popular, I do believe it narrowly stays. Now, Virginia's 10th, I do think that's likely. Then we have Vindman. There has been quite a bit of talk saying this seat is going to be closer than expected. And I can see all the reasons why. Of course, Trump did very well in this district. He got more votes than he did last time. So I just believe in the sense of what I've seen. I know I just said that twice, but it's okay. I do believe it is lower likely. I think it's around a point. I think Vindman loses some of his, support that he had. So that seat can go very interesting. It can actually be tilt. I'm just putting it as lean for now. Then we have the state of North Carolina. You have North Carolina's first. Don Davis was supposed to lose to Laura Buckout last time. Buckout ran a horrible campaign. So, just in that sense, I do think it stays leaning Democrat. Then you have North Carolina's 11th. If you remember, this district was hit hard by the hurricane. They are getting relief, so in that sense, I do think it is actually safe for right now. I know this area is shifting more leftward, but at this point, I do believe, after they're getting help from the federal government, they will have a turning tide in that seat. So, yeah. So, next we do have the state of Georgia in, Bishop's seat in the second, which is a majority black district. If redistricting occurs, I think this seat changes a lot. But for right now, I do have it likely Democrat. Same thing for this Alabama district, which was, drawn to have a more beneficial thing for the Democrats. Same thing for this district, too. I'll just have all these as likely because I don't know what they're going to do, for redistricting. But it can be very interesting. Now we have the state of Florida. The state of Florida, I don't think a lot changes. I think it's probably the same. The only thing that seeing is Florida's 13th. Anna Paulina Luna has always run relatively closer. She's done R+8, then R+9, and just Florida in its sense. I'm going to keep it. Likely, Florida has been turning a very large tide. It's becoming very, very Republican, I think as you saw in 2024. Same thing for the sea. I'll put as lean. You have this area where it's developing in the state of Florida that is shifting more right. But yeah. So we have this side really done. I'm going to leave a couple of these. I'll actually go to Ohio. I'll do Ohio. So Republicans are becoming more based on redistricting in the state. So you're going to see probably the majority of seats from Texas and Ohio alone probably have a net gain of around 6 to 7 seats, which might block the Democrats of a majority. So just off of the map at this moment, I think Captor will lose. She did not do very well. I think she'll lose her seat. She went from D+13 to D+ literally 0.6. So same thing for Skyte's seat. Sorry if I butchered that name. Ohio's 13th. It's the same story. It was Sykes 5.4 to Sykes 2.2. So after redistricting, I just see those seats automatically shifting. So yeah. Then you have Ohio's first. I don't think that changes much after, so I'll keep that as likely. Next, we have the state of Indiana. This seat is, likely not much is going to change there. Then you have the state of Michigan. Okay, so you had Tom Barrett, flipped his seat from 2022 after Alyssa Slotkin ran for Senate. As you saw, she won. So in this sense, right, I do think it'll be in a case that he narrowly holds on. I do think he's liked by his district. You won't see much change there. Same thing for John James. John James' seat, I'll put it as lean. But then you have Michigan's 8th. That won't change much. I'll actually put that as safe because the person who ran here outran my expectations. So in a Democratic year, that seat will shift left. Same thing for Michigan's 3rd. I'll put that as safe. So not much will change there. Next, we have the state of Wisconsin. So you're probably going to have redistricting here as well. So Wisconsin's 3rd is probably a flip automatically. Van Orden, I know, from what I understand, is going to be closer. I know Orden is running, but you also have some very good Democrats on the other side are going to run. So I think it's a pickup for the Democrats. Now, Wisconsin's 1st, excuse me. I do think it, Republicans hold on to this by around a point. I think it's going to be a massive underperformance from what they did last time. But, I just don't believe Democrats can flip an R+10 district. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to do so. This seat in Minnesota should be safe, so nothing changes there. Then we have the state of Iowa. So the state of Iowa, Marianne Miller Meeks, I don't think she has a chance. She won by the skin of her teeth after winning by 6, then now down to 0.2. I don't think she wins. I don't think she holds on. Nobody thinks she holds on, so I will keep on that narrative. Hinton, I think it's likely. I think it's going to be closer. Now, Zach Noon's district, it was around the same thing, Marionette Miller Meeks' district. He actually outperformed my expectations, so I do think that he narrowly holds on. I think that can become a Democratic district, but for now, that's what I believe it is. This district in Illinois, I don't think Republicans have any chance of winning that. I will also fill in these 2 districts in, Pennsylvania here. So then I'll get to the rest of them. Same thing for this. I'll actually fill these 2 in as well. So you guys don't get confused and think that, I think that Republicans are going to win Ryan's 18th congressional district. We'll just keep it as so. Next, we do have the state of Nebraska. So this one is interesting. Yeah, Don Bacon outperformed everybody. Everyone thought he was going to lose. Sadly, I do think now he's narrowly going to lose. I think, he can outperform a lot of people's expectations. He was supposed to lose by 6 or 4. He won by 2. So, and I think in a Democratic year, it's going to be even harder for him to win. This seat should be safe. Yeah. So now we move on to the state of Texas. The state of Texas, right? You're going to probably have redistricting happen here. Probably around here. It's probably going to be gerrymandered to everything. But yeah, so you're probably going to have, Henry Cuellar's seat go down. So I'll put that as tilting Republican. Same thing for Vincent Gonzalez's seat. I think that's also, a flip as well. So you're probably going to see a lot of gerrymandering occur there. So that's going to be a very interesting thing that happens there on that case. Then we have the state of Alaska. Nick Bekich was supposed to lose. He won. Now, I don't think Mary Patola will run again, so I think that state is just likely. Overall, I think Bekich is liked by his congressional district or at-large district, so I think he holds on. I don't think he has an issue holding on there. Next, we have the state of New Mexico. Gabe Vasquez's seat has always been, that interesting seat. He won by 0.7 in 2022. Then now he won by 4 in 2024. So just on that trend, I think it's likely a Democrat, probably turning a tide there. Next, we have the state of Colorado, which was a very large shock to me. You'll probably have Evan's seat, Colorado's 8th, probably flip back. I was not expecting that to flip. So I'll put it as tilting Democrat for now. Then for Colorado's 3rd, I'll put that as likely. Next, we have the state of Montana. So, I don't know why people think it's going to be close. It's probably going to stay around the same. As you saw, Montana shifted heavily to the right. So, I don't think Republicans will have an issue holding that seat. Next, we have the state of Arizona, which is probably going to be where Democrats have the best opportunity. It depends how stuff goes down ballot, but of course, Democrats always have a chance to, not do very well. So in Arizona's fourth, that is probably likely. In Crane's seat, I do think it's lean. I think it's going to be a little closer. Same thing with Schleitwert's seat. I do think it's probably the closest seat in Arizona. It's just going to be difficult in this case, for, Republicans to do their best there. I do think they narrowly hold on, though. Then Sisomani's seat, just because it's a border seat, it depends how the people decide there. Right now, I do have it leaning Democrat. Just because I've seen no indication showing that Republicans will do well in that seat. But, we'll have to wait and see. So it'll be 5-4 in that state. But, yeah, so that's Arizona. Then we have the state of Nevada. So it definitely depends on the gubernatorial side, how the governor does, the incumbent governor. But yeah, so probably not a lot of changes there. So that's probably likely lean, and then likely you're probably not going to see a lot of changes there in the side there. But yeah, so then we move on to the state of Washington. This is where it gets interesting because that all comes down to California and these other congressional seats. So, Kent, Joe Kent is probably not going to run again after losing twice, So I wouldn't be very shocked, if, NGP holds on by a lot. I think she overperforms that seat. Same thing for Washington State. I'll just keep that as safe at this point. Now the state of Oregon, you've had, Chavez DeReamer didn't do very well. I thought she was going to narrowly hold on. That proved not to be the case. So you're probably going to have that seat be likely, and then these two also be likely in the case. So you're probably going to have, probably a more strong cold there. Then let's go to California. So the state of California is a very interesting one. You had the closest seat. You had, Gray hold on by around 200 votes. Adam Gray held on to John Duarte by around 200 votes, or less than 200 votes even. So it was a very, very close race. He underperformed Trump by a couple of points. So, yeah. So, I will start by that seat. I do think Republicans narrowly hold it. Just because, of course, you saw California shift heavily to the right. So, I think it's going to be very interesting. Then you have California 6th, which is right here. That's safe. I was surprised by California's 9th. I thought that was going to be, a very hard seat for Republicans to win. The Republicans did very well there, so I'll keep it around lean. I'll keep it around the lean margin that it is, because, I think everybody was surprised about that seat. California is 22nd. I do think it's a lean. Valadeo did do well. From, winning by 3, he won by around 7. I do think that regresses a little bit. Just because the same thing that happened with Gracie, I think, might happen here. So, yeah. Then you have California's 3rd. That's likely. I don't think much is going to change there. Then you had Mike Garcia's seat. This one was interesting. Whitesides, I do think, wins by a likely margin. I don't think much changes there. Probably becomes more solidly Democrat. Next, we have these seats down here. These seats are probably likely, people thought they were going to be closer. I did not. But, yeah. So, next we have this seat, Derek Trent and Michelle Steele. This one was extremely close as well. Just in this sense of it, Michelle Steele is probably going to run again. But you know, I just don't see, how she holds on. So I'll keep that as a leaning Democrat for now. Then we have California's 40th. I think that's our lean margin. Same thing for Calvert's 41st congressional district. I think it's a leaning as well. So that's California done. Very, very close elections here. This is probably where we're going to see the majority of seats are probably going to be the closest happen. So now we have over here. This is where it comes down to, right? Pennsylvania and New York. That's not really a shocker. We'll go for New York first, to get that one out of the way. So you had Molinaro, which was a very, very sad election. Mark Molinaro was supposed to win. He lost to Josh Riley by around 3 percentage points. So at this moment, I do think that stays around the same. Probably increases to a likely margin. But yes. Then we have Lawler's seat. This one is interesting because if Lawler runs for governor, I do think Republicans narrowly hold on. I think very, very narrowly hold on. But if he doesn't, I think it's safe. Like, there's no contesting that seat. He overperformed everything. So, in that case, I do think he narrowly holds on if, he puts in somebody. Then we have these last two seats right here. Susie, I think, holds on by a lean margin. Then, Despacito lost, so I don't think that changes much. I think they're around the same. They've always been running hand in hand with each other, so I wouldn't be shocked around that case. Then we actually have the state of New Jersey. I forgot to fill this one in. So New Jersey's been running a different tide. Actually, I need to change these three because I've, just as a baseline, same thing for this seat as well. As a baseline, this one is interesting. Just because Morris County, you have it right here, and you have a lot of Republicans standing, I think this narrowly holds on to a lean, and Republicans withhold their majority in the House. Very, very narrow majority. Very narrow, as you can see. But yeah, I mean, New Jersey's been turning a tide. Like, New Jersey 9th, I was not expecting to be that close. But I think you can say Passaic County was also close enough to where that seat, I think that stays around the same. Definitely depends on the gubernatorial election on that side. Then we have the state of Pennsylvania. Okay. This one was interesting. Pennsylvania's 10th. I think that flips. I think everybody thinks it's going to flip. I also think it's going to flip. Now, Ryan McKenzie and, Buchanan, right? So you have these two, Rob Buchanan and Ryan McKenzie. So these people won after, they were not supposed to. I had this state these two seats probably being the closest, right? In my 2024 model. So, Buchanan, I feel like, is one of those candidates where he overperforms a lot. So I think it's a lean margin still. McKenzie, I don't think I have the same hope for. I think narrowly loses for re-election. But yeah. So, in the case of the 2025-2026 election in the House, you do have Democrats picking up one seat, or like in total, like your total, let's say we're at 215, now they're at 216, Republicans losing a seat, which actually they have a couple of gains elsewhere, same thing with Democrats. But 219 to 216, you do have a majority in the House for the Republicans. They withheld their majority very, very narrowly. A lot of things can change. You can have Democrats holding it and Republicans holding it. It's going to be very close either way. But this is what I have it at. I do have Republicans sweeping everything. But yeah, let me know if you guys like this. Let me know if you have any disagreements, and I can provide more information on these seats if needed. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll give an update on the channel soon and why the name change and everything happened. I'll also give you an update on my latest community post around my challenge to TPC for debate. Let me know about that TPC if you're watching as well. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.